Of all the music that I have heard in recent years, there is one project that has stuck in my mind the most. A musical, or more accurately, a series of musicals, all depicting Homer's The Odyssey. I am, of course, referring to the sung-through musical, Epic the Musical. You know, the thing in the title and thumbnail of the video you clicked on. Made by Rivera-Herrans, this musical has been one of my favorites in recent years, given the compelling characters and changes it lifts from Greek mythology, one of my main hyperfixations throughout most of my life. So, to cap off the musical ending Christmas of last year, I want to fully dive into this musical and review every single song, as well as rank them from what I consider to be the worst, all the way to what I consider to be the best. Keep in mind this is going to be a very unprofessional and subjective ranking, so if you have a different ranking order for these songs, then I highly recommend telling me what songs you think are the best in the musical. Truth be told, though I have my preferences, if you told me any of these songs were your favorite, I could see why. This musical is a rare treat where there are no skips in the bunch. With that, let's go through and see which songs I like the best from this epic musical.
Jesus wants a hug!
And unfortunately, at the bottom of the list, we have Open Arms. Now, to preface, this song isn't at the bottom because it's some awful, ear-bleeding, irredeemable piece of garbage or anything like that. In general, Epic the Musical doesn't have a single song that I would consider to be bad. In fact, Open Arms has a really great start. In general, Stephen Dookie has a really nice singing voice, and some of the higher notes that he hits in this song are really pretty and nice to listen to. And the first verse of the song is not just good, but great even. Polites talking to Odysseus, trying to get him to relax and allow himself to be more empathetic after finishing the war that they just won, is really compelling. After 10 years of war, it is completely natural for different soldiers to have easier or more difficult times adjusting to life without combat. If this song was solely Polites and Odysseus debating philosophy and expressing their emotions, then not only would that make for a more interesting song in my opinion, but it would also be perfect setup for later when Odie debates Athena on the mentality that he adopted from Polites. With the first verse and chorus, this song is set up for success. So naturally, the next verse is Odysseus' rebuttal to Polites' first verse, where Odysseus explains what he's feeling and how he can't just simply. And here's my main problem with the song. Open Arms is set up and established as this relatively quiet and personal exchange between these two soldiers and two friends adjusting to time after war and adjusting differently to the new circumstances that they find themselves in. But it feels like the song takes that setup and then realizes, oh right, we have a wider plot to progress, so here, Lotus Eaters. Odie doesn't trust them, and Polites convinces the Lotus Eaters to lead them to a cave with food, and then that sets up the next saga. Yeah, I think we can call it here. It feels like the song drops a genuinely interesting conversation between these two soldiers/friends just so that the plot can move forward. Now, don't get me wrong, I get what they were trying to go for. Instead of having a conversation of ideologies, the Lotus Eaters are a practical demonstration of how conflict can be resolved without violence, show don't tell and all of that. But it just feels very abrupt and crammed into a song that already had a compelling setup. Sometimes a conversation is the best way to move forward when writing a story. On top of it just being a sudden lurch forward in the plot, the song also gets significantly worse from the first verse and chorus. From here, most of the lyrics outside of the chorus, which credit where it's due, are still very well sung, are heavy on the exposition. But look at the way this fruit is glowing and filled with glowing seeds. It took me a while to notice just what kind of fruit they eat. It's a lotus, it controls your mind and never lets you free. Like, come on, Epic, you can do better than that. Overall, while parts of this song are really great, the overall song really starts to fall apart after the first third. Now again, this song isn't horrible. It's no La Vaginoplastia. I will still listen to this song whenever it comes on, but it is the song that I found to be most disappointing out of any song in the musical. It had all the right pieces, but it couldn't put them together. Still though, if this is the bottom of the barrel for this musical, we are in for something special.
Excuse me, what the actual fuck are you doing in my house?
Damn, that voice filter on Polyphemus is great. When he came in on
You killed my sheep.
and I was listening to it for the first time, I physically sat up from my shrimp position. Alright, there's another 3 minutes and 30 seconds to this song. Have I mentioned that Polyphemus' voice filter is really cool? In all seriousness, while I do really like how Polyphemus was executed in this saga, this song just doesn't do it for me. In terms of the plot, we are just on Polyphemus' island now, and oop, now they killed a sheep, and oop, now Polyphemus is here, and oop, now Polyphemus is drinking some wine that Odysseus spiked with lotus. When did Odie spike the wine? Why, off screen of course, and oop, now Polyphemus is killing everyone. Much like Open Arms, it feels like a very "and then this happened" type of song, rather than a song telling a story. Speaking of the song, aside from the voice filter, I do like the instrumental, with Polyphemus' cello making for some great droning and suspenseful atmosphere. I also really like the high note that Jorge hit on Nobody. That was really nice. I have run out of bullet points for this song. It's still fine, but whereas Open Arms started great and then fell apart after the first chorus, thus making it a little more disappointing, Polyphemus just isn't that special from a plot or music standpoint outside of the voice effects. Again, still not bad, I will still listen to it, but it is definitely the least impressive song here.
Peter, the horse is here.
If there is one thing I can fault The Horse and the Infant on, it's that it has the displeasure of being the first song in a musical. As such, it has to convey a lot of exposition and get us acquainted with everything so that we can know what to expect for the coming story. Given that The Horse and the Infant, as well as the Odyssey in general, starts with the war in Troy, that makes this first song a little hectic and all over the place. It has to establish Odie and his men, the war, have Odie's vision with Zeus, and then set up the son of Hector, and I just don't think it does a very good job at connecting those events in a very cohesive way. In the song, at one point Odysseus lets out a cry of pain, and then that leads into Zeus's vision, and to this day I have no clue what triggers that vision. Was Odie stabbed? Did Odie just get a jolt of pain as the vision started? Was Odie attacked by the vision? If I am struggling to understand the events of the song this much, and I have to research what exactly happened in order to understand this basic transition in the song, that is a bit of a problem for me. That said, the song has two things going for it. One, the instrumental is dynamic and consistently strong, adapting to fit any situation perfectly. And two, the final section with Odysseus and Hector's son, which I consider to be the main saving grace of this song. We see that despite Odysseus being a soldier, he is not just hesitant, but actively resistant towards killing a baby who hasn't done anything wrong and can only potentially turn into a threat later in life. There's also an exchange in this song that kind of breaks my heart a little, but I'll save it for later. This song has a lot of pieces that work, but overall as a first song, I would be lying if I said it didn't leave a little to be desired. That said, that desire would be quickly filled by the next song, but again, we'll get there when we get there. Little Wolf is decent, I guess. It has a really good piece of plot progression with Athena stepping in to help Telemachus fight one of the suitors for his mom's honor as a way to make amends for abandoning Odysseus, and Tegan Early kills it as Athena in this song, striking the right balance between relatively light but also commanding as ever. Generally speaking, all three of these characters, Telemachus, Athena, and Antinous, all have incredible singing voices, but other than that, it's not as much that this song is forgettable, but more so that when I think of Telemachus, I sooner think about Legendary and I Can't Help But Wonder. When I think of Athena, I think of My Goodbye and God Games. When I think of Antinous, I think of Hold Him Down and even his small bit at the end of Legendary. When I think of the Wisdom Saga, I think of Love in Paradise. When I think of Epic the Musical, way down on the ladder is Little Wolf. It doesn't have any glaring flaws, and it is still a good song at the end of the day. It's just that when stacked up against the rest of the musical, it does not do favorably. But honestly, we're getting more Miko, Aaron Alexander, and Tegan Early, so really, how much can I complain?
Suck!
Credit where it's due, Charybdis is an insanely catchy song. I find myself mumble singing, "I'm not dying here, I'm still fighting here," incredibly often throughout the day. As a song, it is really solid. But as a song in a musical that needs to progress the plot, this is probably the worst one. If there is one song that you could cut from Epic with little to nothing changing, Charybdis is one of the first to go. What all happens in Charybdis? Odie sails around a monster and then goes home. That's it. The only thing that you would miss by cutting Charybdis is the final few seconds of the song where Odie's raft gets pulled away from Ithaca by Poseidon. But for all intents and purposes, you could just cut those 7 seconds off the back of Charybdis and staple them to the front of Get in the Water, and not only are you making Get in the Water an even better song than it already is, but you now effectively remove Charybdis' one saving grace as a piece of the story. You could argue that Charybdis as a song is meant to be the final monster Odie is supposed to face before getting home, but even then the song doesn't work for me. For starters, the cover art is a bloody trident, and the saga is called the Vengeance Saga. It's pretty clear Charybdis isn't going to be the final threat of the saga.
What? It was obvious!
But even taking that aside, when Hermes says put your whole brain in it, remember every trick in your domain for this in the song prior to this, having Odie now say, "'cause I don't even have to kill you, I just have to avoid you," makes Charybdis as a monster feel like his easiest challenge yet. So while Charybdis is a well-made song with an insanely catchy chorus, as a progression of the story in the musical, it misses the mark in my opinion. Still, the fact that it is a fun song makes it decent in the end.
Something bad is happening in us.
Okay, straight up, that foreshadowing and build-up from Eurylochus about him finding a threat so dangerous that it exceeded the terror of even Poseidon, only to say that it was a woman, is and continues to be my favorite joke in the entire musical. It's just so well executed because we know Eurylochus to be this ultra-serious soldier, so for him to just bluntly say, "a woman," just cracks me up every single time. Outside of that bit though, I think in general this is one of Eurylochus' strongest performances. Additionally, this is the first of 3 songs featuring Talia Sindel as Circe, and she absolutely kills it in all 3 songs, including this one. That said, for the rest of the song as a whole, it's okay. In general, most of the problems that I have with the lower songs in this list come from how they perform as songs in a musical. A song in a musical should, ideally, strike the right balance between progressing the story and being a good song. Open Arms and Polyphemus both progress the plot a lot, but they don't really stack up as songs for the most part. Charybdis is a really good song, but it barely does anything to progress the plot. Puppeteer is above all of these songs because it does progress the plot and it is more functional as an overall song. Or at least it is as soon as Eurylochus comes back from Circe's palace. That said, while it does do both of these aspects and does them better than Little Wolf did them, I simply think that it just doesn't do them as well as other songs in the musical. Aside from the "a woman," what? I don't think of any given part of the song super often, especially not in comparison to the other songs in this saga. While I do appreciate the story progression at play, with Eurylochus begging Odie to run and move on after his crew is lost, and Odie clinging to the last shreds of Polites' philosophy, at the same time I'm just thinking, okay, but how many more seconds until we get to Wouldn't You Like or Other Ways? So overall, while Puppeteer does its job, I do think the rest of the songs in the musical outpace it. And that's all of the songs in the C tier for this musical. Yes, the worst songs of this musical are C tier, ranging from flawed but decent to actually good. We are only 6 songs in. We have a lot to talk about and a lot to praise. In a lot of ways, Survive feels like Charybdis except without the problems of Charybdis. For starters, seeing Odysseus in a tactical position of leading his army through another fight is super fun to listen to, as he gives strategies and motivation to his soldiers. It shows Odysseus' cunning and strategic mindset, and it shows it far better than "I don't even have to kill you, I just have to avoid you." And then Survive does something that Charybdis didn't really do until the final 7 seconds. It impacts the plot in a super major way. Polites, the first casualty, the friend who has urged Odysseus towards peace, is clubbed to death by a backstabbing, conniving Cyclops, and Odysseus freezes. We learn later that not one of Odysseus' men died during the war in Troy, so this is the first death that Odysseus is experiencing firsthand, and it is the first major turning point in the story. So overall, this song is a much better display of Odysseus' tactical mastery while still providing a good song. Jorge's vocals as Odysseus are as strong as ever, the chorus is memorable, and Polyphemus' flip on the chorus at the end is thoroughly chilling. The voice of Polyphemus is just super fun to listen to, so giving it this chunk of the song is super effective, arguably even more so than "You Killed My Sheep" in his titular song. However, with all of the compliments I have said, the reason why the song is still fairly low is because outside of the chorus, I just don't think the song is as impressive when stacked up against the other songs. Still though, this song is still an 8 out of 10, so I'm complaining over very little here. It is still an incredibly solid song. Done For is a similar case as Survive for me, where we have this slow build up on tension and conflict between Odysseus and the antagonist, followed by this grand fight with a pretty impactful twist at the end. The only difference is whereas Survive is just the last half of that equation, Done For is both, and it's really solid. It manages to accomplish what Polyphemus and Survive both did in one song, without it feeling rushed. From a story standpoint, it's really solid. Odysseus leads with peace, Circe gives Odysseus a chance to run, Odysseus reveals that he ate the moly from Hermes, followed by a really solid bit.
Then I must be a god like you, cause I got this root from the ground with my bare hands.
Hermes gave it to you, didn't he?
Okay, fine, yes. Well, regardless.
This is also a slight side tangent, but the Circe saga is probably the funniest saga of the entire musical, which helps as a bit of a come down from the shocking end of the Ocean saga and a quick breather before the Underworld saga. And then we get into the big fight.
This is an impressive fight, though. I'm glad I'm facing towards it.
Yeah, this is one of my problems with not just this song, but a lot of the action songs in Epic. Because Epic is sung through, but doesn't have an official performance to connect it to, the fights feel kinda weak most of the time because we don't have proper context of what's happening in the song break. It feels especially noticeable here because according to Hermes, Moly lets you manifest a being of your creation, and I feel like that's a very creative premise to just leave on the table. So while this song has a strong build-up and strong performances, this feels like the biggest victim of the audio-only format of Epic. Oh well. This is what we have fan-made animatics for.
5 points will be awarded to each of you for sheer dumb luck.
Luck Runs Out is a song that, for the most part, I see people hype up a lot, and I can see why. This song is a good moment for Odysseus and Eurylochus, with Odysseus desperately trying to keep Polites' dream alive, and Eurylochus becoming more vocal about his objections with Odysseus' plans. It gets to the point where Odysseus gets so defensive that he pulls rank on Eurylochus, making him fall in line. By all accounts, from a character and story standpoint, this song is really great. But from a song standpoint, it's still good, but I don't think it's as good as other songs. In my mind, Eurylochus really shines in Puppeteer and the Thunder Saga, but here he's only just good. Look at me, I'm so critical calling this 7 out of 10 performance his weakest performance. I am so biting. As for Odysseus, his high notes in the second verse are pleasant enough, but aside from that, this is also on the weaker end of his songs. And the instrumental, while it is fitting for a quiet and down-to-earth conversation between these two friends and soldiers, something I was just wanting a few songs ago, it still isn't really special in my mind. Again, this is one of many instances where the song as a whole comes together for an 8 out of 10 song, but it just isn't as strong as some of the other songs in the musical, or even this saga. But it's not bad by any stretch of the imagination. Coming off of Just a Man and then the end of the Trojan War, this song is the exact pick-me-up that the crew and the audience both need. After 2 bummer songs in the end of the war, we get this upbeat and triumphant war song of the crew finally sailing back to Ithaca after a hard journey. Here we are introduced to Eurylochus, Odysseus' right-hand man, and Polites, Odysseus' best friend. We immediately get to see the push and pull Odysseus is under, with Eurylochus pushing Odysseus towards pragmatism and a more violence-oriented survival plan, and Polites with a more diplomatic and optimistic plan. It creates a great bond between these 3 characters, while also setting up each character's arc throughout their time in the musical. In terms of story, this song is pretty light, really only setting up the 2 main crew members and the Lotus Eater Island, but in terms of a song, the chorus to Full Speed Ahead might be one of my favorites in the entire musical, having a surprising amount of dynamic parts, all of which the crew and Odysseus sing beautifully.
Would you fall in love with me again? Beautiful song. Full Speed Ahead makes me want to get on a boat. I'm too dry right now. I need to be on a ship. I need to be on a boat. I need to be out in the ocean. I need to be with a crew. I need a boat.
Overall, while it isn't the most important song to the story, it at least has enough going for it to put it above the likes of Charybdis for me. Just an incredibly solid song that gives us a much needed breather.
Let's go live to Ollie Williams with the Black U Weather Report. Ollie?
It's raining sideways!
Now this is how you open a saga. After The Horse and the Infant and Polyphemus, there was a slight trend of the opening song of the sagas being some of the weakest in the entire musical, and while Storm is only just above the 1/4 mark in the list, it is also an absolute banger. It has one of the most bombastic and theatrical instrumentals of any song in the musical. It's the kind of instrumental you would find in a Souls-like game. It's that good. Outside of the instrumental, from a character and story standpoint, it sets up the saga perfectly. The crew is so close to reaching home after 10 years of war, with only this storm blocking their way. They are determined but also desperate to get home, leading to some of Odysseus' more reckless behavior despite the warnings from Eurylochus. If I had to point out one criticism, it would be that much like Luck Runs Out, this isn't a super special performance from either Odysseus or Eurylochus singing-wise. But again, boo-hoo me, the singing in this 8 out of 10 song isn't as good as the other 9 or 10 out of 10 songs. Poor me. Overall, despite being on the lower end of the list and not having a lot to talk about, the Storm Saga has 2 great songs back to back opening the musical, and it's only going to get better from here.
What, you're done already? You've only been here for like 15 seconds, and I was talking for like half of that.
Yeah, God games! This is what the Wisdom Saga has been leading up to! Woo! Would you kill me if I said this song was kind of overrated? Don't get me wrong, the individual sections of the song are really solid on their own, having great moments of comedy and drama respectively. Even Apollo's section, which is probably my least favorite, is still well sung by Brandon McGinnis, who does a good job. Wait, what do you mean Brandon McGinnis is in this? What? Learning that the guy who played Night Eye in Gyotaro was in Epic, but also that he was Apollo, was a massive shock since I didn't recognize his voice at all. On the more popular end of things, Jorge's dad playing Hephaestus, god of the forge, after he helped Jorge build his sound booth in real life is just super sweet. However, while each of these sections are good on their own, that's also where my main problem with the song is. they only show up for about 15 seconds each before they're gone. As such, it doesn't really feel like Athena is convincing these gods to release Odie as much as it feels like the gods are just indifferent pushovers. Zeus's challenge of getting Athena to convince the gods to release Odysseus has all the difficulty of just asking them pretty please, to which half of the gods immediately respond, okay. The one section where it feels like Athena actually has to try, it's her section with Aphrodite and Ares, which not only lasts longer than 15 seconds, but feels like Athena is actually struggling to convince them, which makes her success feel earned. And then of course the last section with Hera. Admittedly, it has the same problem as all of the other short sections, with one change.
Never once has he cheated on his wife. Release him.
That line being the thing to immediately convince Hera was super funny, so I give Hera's section a bit of a pass. And then lastly, the final section of the song, which is actually pretty solid, with Athena having to withstand Zeus's attacks in order to reach him, all while she is empowered by not just her friendship with Odysseus, but her new friendship with his son Telemachus being the thing to drive her forward. Having a soft piano rendition of Warrior of the Mind suddenly change into this bombastic version of Legendary was super climactic and very satisfying to listen to. So overall, while this song does have great bits and pieces to it, it feels a lot less cohesive and narratively satisfying for a large chunk of it. Still though, every singer is giving it their A game, so this ends up being a really strong song. Not one of Epic's best, but still really solid. God, going from monster to suffering has been the biggest mood whiplash in the entire musical. Like, you go from Odysseus' breaking point to now this? What the hell were they think? Oh, yep, nope, there it is. Now this is what I was expecting when Odysseus pledged himself to be a monster. There isn't much in the way of plot for this song, but the stuff that is here is very important. Odysseus manipulated the sirens and trapped them on his ship, which makes sense. Odie has always been a tactician, so finding a way to resist the sirens' powers preemptively and also finding a way to get them out of the water is very fitting. But then the sirens do something that no other villain has done in the musical yet. They beg for mercy. Much like how Odysseus had begged Polyphemus, Poseidon, and Circe for mercy in his encounters with them, now Odysseus is the one to receive those pleas from the sirens. And of course, keeping Polites' ideology in his heart, he decides to cut the sirens free from their nets and lets them go unharmed.
Cut off their tails! We're ending this now! Throw their bodies back in the water. Let them drown.
Hey, whoa, what the fuck, man? In the second song of Act 1, Odysseus was reluctant to kill a baby that might turn into a threat for him down the line. Now, in the second song of Act 2, Odysseus doesn't hesitate to brutalize and kill a group of sirens that are begging for their lives, vowing to never hurt them again. But ruthlessness is mercy upon themselves. This one song, especially after the prior song, does a lot to show how much Odysseus has changed for the worse and sets up just how desperate he is to get home, now willing to kill even incapacitated threats that he has already beaten if it means getting home all the faster. Now, in terms of Different Beasts as a song, this is definitely one of the most purely intense songs in the musical. The instrumental is nearly all drums, previously the instrument of Odysseus' army, but the only other part of the instrumental for Odysseus and his crew is brass, the instrument of Poseidon, showing just how much Odysseus took Poseidon's lesson to heart. In general, this is one of the strongest songs in terms of accomplishing what it sets out to do. That said, the reason why it's so relatively low is just for the fact that it doesn't really have as much replay value. Once I heard this song once, I fully processed everything that the song had to offer, and aside from full listen-throughs of the saga or the musical as a whole, I don't really find myself coming back to Different Beasts as much as other songs. It's still great, don't get it twisted, it's just not really the best that the Thunder Saga has to offer. That said, this is also the weakest song of the Thunder Saga, and it's already above the 1/4 mark of the list. We are in for a lot of special songs this saga.
This is a cow farm. You're gonna find cows outside.
Oh my god, I am not getting through to you. Eurylochus was in the wrong for killing the cow when Odie was begging him not to. Well, Odysseus was in the wrong for, I don't know, willingly sacrificing 6 people? Oh, come on, Eurylochus was such a hypocrite, caring about the sacrificed soldiers when he was willing to leave them to die at Circe's palace. He only wanted to leave because he just saw most of the other soldiers die. And whose fault is that, Mr. Windbag? Guys. Both of these two are idiots. Jokes aside, while I will say Mutiny isn't the best from a song standpoint, it is very compelling from a plot standpoint. Up until now, there have been enough questionable actions on both sides to the point where both Eurylochus and Odysseus have grounds to stand on. It's such a compelling blame game, since they have done equally questionable things to their crewmates. Now, if it were a case where Odysseus lied to Eurylochus once, and then Eurylochus let that one lie spiral out of control to the point of breaking into someone's house, robbing them, and then killing the homeowner as he tried to make his escape, and then he went on to play the victim when the wife of that person he killed naturally wanted Eurylochus to suffer consequences for the actions that he committed almost completely separate from the initial lie, then that would be a lot less understandable. This is a call-out post for Jack from Into the Woods, specifically the 1989 version that's played by a grown-ass 20-year-old man. I hate you, Jack. That said, the plot does suffer a little bit because after Odysseus is knocked out, now they're suddenly on Helios's island with Helios's cows, and it is a bit of a and then this happened moment, but given how strong that the first half of the song was, I give it a little bit more of a pass here, especially because the setup of the first half is directly relevant to the second half, and not just tangentially related. And then remember how I said that Eurylochus really shined in the Thunder Saga? Yeah, this is hands down his best song, no contest. Armando Julian does such a great job capturing Eurylochus's rage, but also his exhaustion, finally at the end of his rope after 12 years of suffering. His use of Just a Man at the end of his section gave me chills. Additionally, the use of Luck Runs Out as the song plays out is very poignant and shows just how far these characters have sunken. Outside of those specific bullet points though, I don't really have as much to say about Mutiny as I do other songs, but I really do still like this one. It is definitely another success amongst the already great Thunder Saga.
Poseidon quivers before him! Fuck off!
Okay, truth be told, I do not like how this song starts. Not only is it just a bit basic in my opinion, but more so than every other fight song in the musical, except for maybe Done For, it really isn't clear what exactly is going on. Not only that, but Odysseus being able to beat Poseidon in one-on-one combat just doesn't sit well with me. With Circe, he at least had the anti-Circe flower to fight her, but here he just has the windbag and presumably a sword. So needless to say, I do not like the first third of this song. But the other 2/3 of the song, oh boy. By using the windbag to beat Poseidon, Odysseus sealed off his only way home, meaning he can never return to Ithaca again, and an injured Poseidon starts taunting him for it.
You released my storm when you opened that bag. Blocked your one way home. Now you'll never get back.
When different beats started playing on the horns, my eyes widened. The motif of the song where Odysseus was at his cruelest, playing on the horns, Poseidon's main instrument? What could Odysseus possibly do here? What could Odysseus do to the god of the seas, Poseidon, to make him call back this storm?
Wait.
Oh god. Odysseus picking up Poseidon's trident, followed by Odie stabbing Poseidon repeatedly, dropped my jaw. For the entire musical, most of the gods have been treating Odysseus as a plaything, twisting him, manipulating him, hurting him, all for their own twisted games. But here, Odysseus has the opportunity to unleash that pain outward towards them for a change. Odysseus stabbing Poseidon again and again and again, venting all of this pent-up frustration and agony as Poseidon screams in pain was super compelling. In general, while this is his weakest song, Steven Rodriguez is at his best as a performer here. Between Poseidon's snide and petty insults to his screams of pain, some of which are sung as music to Odysseus' ears, and perhaps the most chilling delivery in the entire musical. All of this comes to a head as Odysseus continues to stab Poseidon, repeating his own rhetoric back at him, all for Poseidon to release the storm and beg for mercy, a flip of what happened in ruthlessness. At the end of it all, there's this one last exchange that I haven't been able to get out of my head.
After everything you've done, how will you sleep at night?
Next to my wife.
I know I played a lot of clips of the song here, but truthfully, the peaks of this song speak for themselves, louder and clearer than I am able to put into words. This final moment of catharsis before Odysseus goes home, confronting the entity that caused most of his pain and suffering throughout these 2 years, is executed phenomenally. While yes, the first third of this song drags it down by quite a bit, this is still an incredible song with some killer acting and singing, some of the best in the entire musical.
You're my friend now. We're having soft tacos later.
Oh man, I did not give this song enough credit when I first listened to it. While it is still pretty abrupt in the story, and the exposition that Athena gives as to how she met Odysseus is a bit weird considering that she's supposed to be singing to Odysseus in that moment, but once we fully get into the flashback, then this song really starts to pick up, depicting Odysseus' wit and cleverness from even a young age, eventually getting the attention of the goddess of wisdom Athena herself after Odysseus clears her challenge.
I was lying! And you fell for my bluff!
That always gets me to smile. I love that delivery so much. And then, of course, we get to the main part of the song that everyone loves.
Nah, don't be modest. I know you're a goddess, so let's be honest, you are Athena! Athena!
When I first heard this song, I thought this moment was a bit cheesy, but nowadays, yeah, I was definitely being too harsh. This is gas.
You are Athena! Athena! Badass in the arena! Unmatched, witty, and queen of the best strategies we've seen!
And then lastly, we have my favorite part of the song, the repeat of the chorus including Athena and Odysseus, where Athena holds her note initially, whereas Odysseus riffs, and then by the end of the song they are fully harmonizing, showing not just Athena's impact on Odysseus throughout the song, but also Odysseus' impact on Athena. It's a super nice touch, especially given what comes later. Overall, while I do think that this song is still just a tiny bit overrated in comparison to the rest of the musical, this song still earns most of the credit that it gets. Behind a certain other song, it is one of the best of the Troy saga.
I said it's beautiful out. Look at the west tower of the palace and take off your clothes.
So there's this trend in the Odyssey where Odysseus is put through a lot, and how most, if not all of it, in some way ties back to his character. For instance, the main conflict of his journey home starts when he hurts Poseidon's son, causing a parallel between Poseidon and Odysseus as protective father figures, and things like that. However, there is one conflict in the Odyssey that I never really liked, and that was Circe seducing Odysseus in order for her to have proper incentive to free Odie's men. Now I know, different times, different standards, divine compulsion, yada 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 yada. But for me, having Odysseus cave and cheat on Penelope here just never really sat well with me. That's why when this song started, and when I remembered what part of the Odyssey this was, I got a bit nervous. I thought this would be the sequel successor to Say No to This from Hamilton. But no, the musical does not go that route. Of course, Circe still tries to seduce Odysseus in order to escape the conflict, but Odysseus, while he was tempted, ends up refusing Circe's proposition. Instead, he confides in Circe, telling her everything about why he's trying to go home and why they're even on her island in the first place. After revealing that Odysseus is a genuinely good-intentioned and loyal person, this then convinces Circe to let Odysseus and his men go since they are no longer a threat to her and her nymphs. It's such a small but powerful change to the story that ends up enhancing Odysseus, Circe, and the themes of the story tremendously. It makes Circe so much more likable and sympathetic since she doesn't go through with the coercion and instead comes to a genuine understanding with Odysseus. But also now we have a version of the Odyssey where Odysseus is so loyal to the point where he will turn down the advances of literal goddesses just for the love for his wife Penelope. From a pure story standpoint, this song is fantastic, better than even some of the songs past the halfway mark of this list. That said, as a song itself, while it is still solid all around, I don't really love the instrumental or the lyrics of this song. The vocals are still great, no doubt about it, but I do think some of the lyrics are a bit clunky.
Want to save your men from the fire. Show me that you're willing to burn.
Again, none of this is necessarily bad, but it does irk me, and I do have to give my reasons on why some songs are lower than others, which may come across as nitpicks. Still though, aside from those nitpicks, this is still a great song in the overall musical, and a really solid end to the Circe saga, which I personally think gets a lot more hate than it deserves.
Don't you talk about my mother!
When we left off at the end of the Thunder Saga, Odysseus just sacrificed his entire crew to save himself from Zeus and is currently sinking to the bottom of the sea, cold, alone, and in grief of what he has just done. And picking up from that tragedy, we see Odysseus finally come to terms with— wait, who the fuck are you? Yep, this song is the introduction of Telemachus, Odysseus' son and the Prince of Ithaca, played by Miko, who does an incredible job singing while capturing Telemachus' youth and optimism. Technically, this is also the reintroduction of Telemachus, but we'll get there. What I love about Legendary is that it gives the exact same vibes as the flashback in Warrior of the Mind. We see Telemachus equally as driven and ambitious as his father, but without the capabilities that Odysseus has. He wants so desperately to protect his mom, especially from the over 100 suitors that are coming to try and win her hand at marriage. Telemachus would do anything to see that his mom is safe, and we get just the faintest of hints that he will do anything. And then, of course, the end of the song, where Telemachus is interrupted by Antinous, and look, Antinous, awful person, dreadful, even worse than Calypso is in this musical. But much like how Calypso has an incredibly beautiful singing voice and enough charisma to make her presence still entertaining, Aaron Alexander has that too in spades. His deliveries, especially of—
what you gonna do about
just overall, while this song is a lot of setup, it is still nevertheless incredibly well sung and well made. A great start to the Wisdom Saga and all that it has to offer.
Now, here to read my social security number is a field reporter named after the amount of people I performed oral sex on in one night in 2012.
Alright, now this is what I'm talking about. In general, I think the Cyclops saga is on the low end of my favorite sagas, but I'll be damned if I say that this isn't a terrific turning point for the story. Coming immediately off the heels of Polites' death, seeing Odysseus give us the first hints of his more monstrous side is super fulfilling. Up until now, Odie has done whatever it takes to win the war and survive getting home, but he was still mostly within reason. He agonized over killing Hector's son in Just a Man, clearly uncomfortable and mortified by the action at the time. But here, Odysseus has no qualms with maiming Polyphemus. We get this raw, electrifying song, and I do mean that second part quite literally. Each character in the musical has a signature instrument, and for Odysseus, it's the guitar. Up until now, it has mostly been acoustic, but we have heard bits and pieces of an electric guitar being used for Odie, specifically at the very end of The Horse and the Infant. In Remember Them, the electric guitar is front and center as a rage-filled Odysseus commands his army once more, sharpening this massive tree trunk of a club that Polyphemus used to kill Polites into a massive battering ram, gouging out Polyphemus's eye as he sleeps off the lotus that was spiked in his wine. On top of that, we get to hear even more Cyclopses as the payoff of the classic My Name is Nobody moment. And finally, as one last stinger, against the warnings of Athena, Odysseus leaves Polyphemus alive, like Polites might have wanted, and Odysseus tells him to never hurt another soul, lest he incur more wrath from the reigning king of Ithaca.
Odysseus!
At first, this sounds like a moment of triumph, as we hear Odysseus' name be said for the first time in the musical. But in reality, this is a very dark moment that sets in course the rest of the musical. Every single time this song comes on, my blood is pumping. This song is incredibly impactful, from everything ranging to the electric instrumental and Odysseus' vocal deliveries. Such a powerful song. The only reason why it isn't higher is because I just don't think the lyrics themselves are all that interesting. The delivery sells them, but the lyrics themselves aren't up to snuff with some of the other higher songs. Still though, an incredible action song that leads perfectly into the last song of the saga, as well as the rest of the musical as a whole.
Wouldn't you like to know, Weather Boy?
Okay, this is a bit of an anecdote and a bit of a side tangent, but I swear I'm going somewhere with this. Leading up to the first season of Percy Jackson, it was announced that Lin-Manuel Miranda would be playing Hermes, and at first this had me a little cautious. Lin has some great acting chops, but I wasn't really sure if he could play the relatively calm and down-to-earth Hermes from the books. I had a sneaking suspicion and fear that they would make Hermes super bombastic and give him way too much theater energy. But no, even though Hermes wasn't even in the first book, at least not physically, the way the first season included Hermes was pretty natural, and Lin did a great job for the small time that he had. I'm super glad that they didn't make Hermes super energetic and zesty and theater kid coded and... Okay, you know what? I wouldn't be mad if they made Hermes a little more flamboyant and theater kid. So first things first, Troy Doherty as Hermes is my favorite singing performance out of any character in the cast of Epic. His vocal deliveries and laughs give me so much life, and the sheer amount of personality and flair that he gives Hermes is absolutely infectious. If there was one performance in Epic that shocked me with just how good it was, it would be Troy as Hermes. As for the song itself, the mix of harp-like strings with synth, piano, and drums makes for a very unique instrumental, complemented by Troy's amazing vocals. The song itself is about Hermes helping Odysseus fight Circe, but we don't really even know why. We don't know if he was sent as a proxy by some other god, we don't know if this is just for his idle entertainment, or if he's just genuinely curious about Odysseus, or what. We would get clarity later, but when the song first came out, it wasn't very clear to me, and I liked that moral ambiguity. If I had one thing to criticize, it's that this song has a similar problem to the Lotus Flower from Open Arms, where the explanation for Molly is a bit clunky. That said, it fits much better from a story standpoint and flows much better here, so it gets more of a pass. Overall, this song is great. The fact that it is just below the halfway mark of this list is by no means an insult, but more so it speaks to the quality of the rest of the musical. That said, the quality of just this one song is high on its own. Godspeed, Troy. I can't wait to talk more about you later.
I don't know you anymore.
My biggest problem with this song is that the opening 4 lines are pretty clunky to me. It is all compliments from here. This is one of the most haunting songs of the entire musical. This ominous and foreboding telling of Odysseus' future, perfectly foreshadowing the events to come in the rest of the musical as the second to last song of Act 1. It works so well because for all intents and purposes, the audience has about as much knowledge and has the same reaction as Odysseus. After everything that his crew has done, after everything that has happened to them, after everything they have lost, now this prophecy is saying that Odysseus doesn't even get home alive, or rather that the person who does get home is so warped that he is barely recognizable to the original Odysseus. It stings a lot, especially following the information that Odysseus's mom is dead and that he never got to say goodbye to her. This feels like yet another gut punch for Odysseus, acting as the final straw to break Odysseus's moral code. While there isn't much to say about the singing, which by all accounts is still solid, the instrumental to this song is what makes it so special. It starts with this simple violin and simple strings in the background, but it slowly builds and builds and builds, including a precursor to the motif that will appear in Odysseus, and including even more foreshadowing in the background chants. The song continues to swell and swell until it finally breaks out into this full-on orchestra, feeling like this big bombastic opera, all accumulating in one word.
It's no longer you.
While this song isn't as strong from a main vocal department, which is by no means an insult, the instrumental, lyrics, and story foreshadowing all creates a beautifully foreboding song that will continue to hang over the rest of the musical. It is the perfect song to put at the halfway point of the musical, and for me, it is at the halfway point for this list. Simply amazing.
I miss my dad.
Oh, that's deeper than I want to go.
If there was one song that specifically surprised me in the Wisdom Saga, it would be Love in Paradise. But if there was a second song, it would be We'll Be Fine. Just this super mellow and tender moment between Athena and Telemachus, where Athena vents her regrets about how she abandoned Odysseus, and how she regrets handling their mentor-mentee relationship, wishing they maintained a bit more friendship. Tegan Early once again kills it, capturing Athena's regret and remorse. But thankfully, Telemachus reassures her and lets her know that even if she can't be friends with this unspecified stranger, she can at least be friends with him. The duet between these two is amazing, with both having their individual moments to shine, as well as a nice moment at the end singing together like Odysseus and Athena did at the end of Warrior of the Mind, albeit with a vastly different attitude from Athena. Combine all of this with a pleasant instrumental and we have a really solid song. That said, if it sounds like I'm not saying much about this song, don't worry, I am. But that's also my biggest problem with this song. It is 2 minutes and 6 seconds, the shortest song in the musical, and I really think it could have used more time. As an example, the next time we see Telemachus, it is in the song Odysseus, where he got back from a diplomatic mission with Athena guiding him through it. In the Odyssey, Telemachus and Athena's journey was a massive part of the story, and I feel like they could have at least set that up, even if the specifics of this trip were changed in the musical. It could have set up why Telemachus was gone, and it could have enhanced Penelope's loneliness at the start of the Ithaca saga, and this is just one of the ways they could have built on this relationship more. That said, while there is a bit of missed opportunity here, this is still a great song, and what we got still warms my heart on every listen.
He was the best guy around. What about the people he murdered? What murder?
Remember kids, if you saw someone stealing food, no you didn't. If you saw a homeless person sleeping in public, no, you didn't. And if you were in Penelope's palace and Ithaca in general and saw Odysseus kill over 100 representatives of several other kingdoms, no, you didn't. Jokes aside, this song is great. It's a little fragmented by the different groups of suitors being cut off by Odysseus. Well, cutting them off but generally all of the sections feel a lot more cohesive in total than God Game's many different deity sections felt in that song. Additionally, once we get to the reintroduction of Telemachus, now with actual combat training, the song really picks up. I've seen people compliment "Old King, our leader is dead," and that section is incredibly good and the compliments are fair, but I haven't seen anyone compliment like, come on, are you hearing this? In general, the singing from everyone in this song is amazing, but the star of all of them is definitely Odysseus himself. Jorge's line deliveries in this are some of the most chilling in the entire musical. Everything past "My mercy has long since drowned" had me on the edge of my seat, and when he delivered that line, my jaw physically dropped. The palpable rage and fury of this man who has done horrible things to get home, even more so than with Poseidon, now has the opportunity to fully let out all of that pent-up emotion in this morbidly mesmerizing powerhouse of a song. The reason why this song isn't higher though is because aside from dedicated listen-throughs of either the Ithaca saga or the musical as a whole, I don't really find myself coming back to this song. It's amazing, there's just other songs, especially in the Ithaca saga, that I like more. That said, this is the first Ithaca song in the entire list. Oh boy.
You will suffer as I, Ramatra, have suffered.
The absolute tonal whiplash of going from monster to now this is something to behold. You go from Odysseus' existential break to now this upbeat, cheerful marimba music, like what? That said, if you pay attention to the lyrics, you know something is not right. On my first listen through, I immediately clocked Siren Penelope saying daughter, and knew that we were at the Sirens. But even so, the chemistry between even this fake Penelope and Odysseus is truly remarkable. The call and response nature of this song, having each character start their part on the syllable that the other ended their part on, makes for a great and pleasant listening experience. On top of that, there are just a bunch of cute moments that, even though they are undercut, haha, in the next song, still hold up on repeat. No matter how many times I listen to this song, Siren Penelope's playful little "oh no" still cracks a smile on my face every single time. And of course, Siren Penelope continuing to press and press and press as Odysseus continues to play coy and gather more and more information, while also buying time for his crew to capture the other sirens off screen, is also a great moment for Odysseus to hint to his newly acquired cynicism. Even the part of exposition for Scylla, even though it's heavy-handed, it is framed in a way that makes the fact that it is heavy-handed intentional, and I really appreciate that. In general, this song is amazing and a really pleasant song to listen through again and again, regardless of what happens immediately after it. It is yet another success in the Thunder Saga.
Hades. 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 Hades.
You ever just hear the first song of any given album and say, oh yeah, this is gonna hurt. Oh yeah, this should hurt. There is a bit of a jump going from Circe's Island to immediately being in the underworld with off-screen instructions from Circe, but given how it was set up in other ways, I give it a bit of a pass. But as for the song itself, this song sets up the final saga of Act 1 perfectly, detailing some of Odysseus' greatest mistakes so far. It leads with a chorus of dead soldiers repeating "just a man," ruthlessness, and then this really cool moment. The melodies in this part are so bizarre, but instead of feeling muddled, it just feels ghastly and haunting, which really adds to the atmosphere of this song. Then the song transitions to the second part, where we hear Polites again, singing his beautiful chorus from Open Arms. As much as I think that song dropped the ball a bit, the chorus of that song and Politis' singing voice was a consistent positive. So hearing it again with this context, with everything that went wrong, is super touching. There's this brief moment of silence before the third part of the song, where we hear
That voice. It can't be. Mom?
It's just one word. This song managed to instantly get me to tear up. Hearing Odysseus' mom's voice, first of all, is absolutely transcendent. Her singing voice is positively angelic, which provides this brief moment of beauty in an otherwise depressing song. But secondly, hearing Odysseus on the verge of tears, knowing that this journey has cost him so much time that he didn't even get the chance to say goodbye to his mom, really got to me. When I was younger, I often took for granted the time that I spent with my parents, and as I have grown, especially in the past 2 years, I have tried to make a more conscious effort of spending time with my parents and enjoying their company. So to see Odysseus find his mom in the underworld, and for that to be the moment where he finds out that she was dead, broke my heart. And there's one final fact about this section that makes it all the more depressing. You know who Odysseus' mom's singer is? Well, you know how Odysseus is played by Jorge Rivera-Herrans? Odysseus' mom is played by Wanda Herrans, Jorge's mom. Just, what the fuck, man? This song got me to cry on a first listen, and it continues to get me to tear up to this very day just by thinking of it. The only thing that holds this song back, aside from the sudden-ish jump to the underworld, is that the instrumental, while fitting, isn't something that I would put on by itself. With the higher songs, I can put on either the full versions or just the instrumental versions and have a better time than if I put on the Underworld's instrumental. That said, if that's my biggest criticism, you just know that the other 15 songs in this musical are great.
You had one job.
Just the one?
I think my favorite part of Keep Your Friends Close is that unlike some other songs where the plot points are sudden or the music is held back to compensate for the story or anything like that, is that Keep Your Friends Close manages to keep all of those plates spinning, and boy does it spin them well. This is a song that truly has everything. It has great story progression with Aeolus giving Odysseus the windbag and someone opening it after enough doubt in Odysseus' leadership has crept in. It has great vocals with everyone doing a great job, with Kira Stone's Aeolus being the obvious standout in the song. It just has everything. In addition to Kira Stone's Aeolus, Keep Your Friends Close also includes the first appearance of Anna Lee's Penelope, and ever so softly in the background, Miko's Telemachus, which I adore. Penelope's voice is very clear and distinct in Odysseus' mind because he spent years of his life with her. But given that Odysseus left for war while Telemachus was an infant, it's only natural that his voice wouldn't be as strong or defined in Odysseus' mind. It's one of many subtle details in the musical that I love. Keep Your Friends Close also has a great instrumental that manages to adapt itself seamlessly to the various scenes and moments of the song. In general, in every single respect, this song holds its own. That said, while this song is fantastic, the reason why it's lower than the other 3/8 of this list is because while it does everything great, in comparison to the rest of the list, it is a bit of a jack-of-all-trades song. It does everything well, but the rest of the higher songs are able to outclass it in a lot of different categories. Still, that is no slight against this song, because it is fantastic, both on its own and as a lead-up for the next song in the Storm Saga, which we will be getting to very soon.
I mean, look at what I've accomplished. Do you see him? Do you think a depressed person could make this?
Finally, we have the proper introduction to Penelope. Before this, we've only heard her voice be imitated by dreams and sirens, but now we actually get to officially meet her. I can't wait to see how she... Oh, honey, Oh, yeah, this song kinda hurts a bit. Up until now, we've seen Odysseus and his very apparent longing for Penelope, but now we get to see the flip side of it. However, instead of Odysseus clawing and fighting to get home, Penelope has just been stewing for 20 years, enduring harassment, unwanted advances, and just waiting in despair, wondering if Odysseus is even alive or not. In many ways, Penelope has been going through her own special kind of hell just to hold on to her love for Odysseus. Whereas before in Keep Your Friends Close and Suffering, we heard quote-unquote Penelope singing happily, here we feel the sorrow in her voice and lyrics. We feel her sadness and desperation, but also her quiet rage and exhaustion. She is sad that she's been waiting so long, but she's also fed up with the conditions of her waiting, having to endure these suitors due to the rules of hospitality. Something that they could have elaborated on a little more in the musical, but nitpicks. It is to the point where after the storm from the end of the Vengeance saga that was only miles away from Ithaca, she is ready for all of this to end one way or another. It is such a powerful note to start the last saga on, and it's made all the better by Anna Lee's vocal performance, combined with an instrumental that manages to balance both quiet and somber moments with intense and dramatic ones. Keep in mind, I have only covered 2 songs from this saga so far, counting this one. We still have a lot to discuss and a lot to praise from this saga, but this is a hell of a good first impression.
It's been 40 seconds, Eurylochus! I don't want to hear it!
Okay, so you remember how my biggest compliment for both the character and the song Polyphemus was the voice filter that Jorge used on himself, and then the rest of the song wasn't super impressive? Well, imagine if they made a version of Polyphemus that had better build-up and execution from a plot standpoint, a theme of the song that directly ties into Odysseus and his moral degradation, and had an even cooler voice filter with even more intimidating lyrics. Well, imagine no longer, because that's just what Scylla is. To start with the voice filters, the voice filter on Polyphemus essentially deepened Jorge's voice while giving it an electric reverb sound to his vocals. Scylla's voice filter, on the other hand, takes KJ Buckhauser's voice, gives it an echoey, almost aquatic reverb sound, and also multiplies her voice and harmonizes it, giving a sense of Scylla being this choir of one. Speaking of which, now for the contents of the song. After finding the only way home is through the lair of Scylla, Odysseus silently schemes on how to get past this mythical sea beast, until Eurylochus reveals the secret he's been trying to tell since the Circe saga.
I opened the wind bag while you were asleep,
leaving them feeling betrayed, breaking the bonds that you've made.
I'm so sorry.
In quiet rage, Odysseus comes up with a plan on how to get through, by lighting up 6 torches and handing them out to 6 soldiers. Now, it isn't explicitly stated in the song, but we know from the showcased animatic that Odysseus hands one of these torches to Eurylochus as Scylla's singing becomes more and more personal to Odysseus' situation. And then, the grand reveal. Scylla is honestly my favorite villain performance in Epic. She isn't around long, but for the time that she is here, she is foreboding, unnerving, and when she fully reveals herself to the crew, she is terrifying. That choir of one that I mentioned earlier, yeah, that choir is singing from Scylla's multiple heads while the 6 soldiers with torches are eaten alive by Scylla, which we hear in the background of Scylla's gruesome actions and lyrics. Even with no visual indicators, it gives the impression that while some of Scylla's heads are eating these soldiers, the others are joining the main voice in singing this ghastly dirge for the crew. While this song isn't the most evil villain song, we'll get to that very shortly, this is one of the best villain songs that they could have made for such a relatively small character in the story. In this song, KJ Buckhauser proves that there are no small roles, only small performers, and KJ as Scylla is anything but small.
Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. You're cool. And fuck you, I'm out!
While the lows of the Cyclops saga are pretty low in comparison to the musical, the highs of the Cyclops saga are My Goodbye. My Goodbye is such a heartbreaking song, because on one hand, you can see where Odysseus is coming from, honoring his late friend in his wishes for peace, and hearing Athena's belligerence towards the situation makes siding with Odysseus all the easier. But now with the ending in mind, and knowing just how much Odysseus suffers without Athena, and how much Athena regrets pushing Odysseus away, and when they finally reunite, seeing that their ideologies have swapped, makes this initial breakup all the sadder. This is a bitter, petty, and heated argument between Odie and Athena that devolves into each other slinging personal attacks at each other. Athena throws the lives of Odysseus' dead friends in his face and flips the line, "I'll make sure your time's well spent" from Warrior of the Mind into "what a waste of effort spent." On the other hand, Odysseus attacks not just Athena's status as a god, but as one who is lonely, forgotten, and unloved. The entire thing comes to a head with Odysseus' final comments giving Athena pause, and Athena responding with a quiet version of the chorus. We can just feel how deep that line cut her. The final moment of this song, where Athena sings her goodbyes, riffing near the end of most of them, but then her final goodbye being a sustained note, is such a subtle but powerful reverse of Warrior of the Mind, wherein her time with Odysseus caused her to loosen up and harmonize. And at the very end, as we take in what happens, with Athena's piano playing in the background, we hear distant winds of a storm, an omen of what's to come from Odysseus' recent actions. This song has it all. It has emotion, it has great vocals, it has great instrumentals, it has major story implications, it has it all. There are only 3 songs in Act 1 that I consider to be better than this, but as is, this is definitely a highlight of the first act, and easily the best song of the Cyclops saga by a mile.
No! 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 Stay back!
Wait, where'd you get that piano?
I have one singular criticism of this song. I think the collection of snippets at the beginning of the song was solid, but I don't like how it was executed. Specifically, the transition between No Longer You and Different Beasts is always so jarring to me, and I don't really like listening to it. I get what the song was going for, but if I could have done it, I would have gone with something a bit less disruptive since the medley starts out really strong. That said, that one criticism, that one nitpick aside, this song is fantastic. Barbara Wangui as Calypso is honestly one of my favorite performances of the musical. Her voice is just so infectiously positive, which is both nice for the audience to listen to, but also troubling within the context of the musical, since she is trying to trap Odie and keep him on Ogygia forever. I won't be diving into Calypso's actions until later, but just know that she is still a villain despite her charisma and her performance. For specifically Odysseus, this island is the perfect punishment that Zeus could have inflicted onto Odie, trapping him on an island with a devoted lover who isn't his wife, with no way to get out. Combined with the fact that Zeus just killed Odysseus' remaining crew, and Odysseus is left to wallow and spiral on this island for 7 years until he gets to the point of suicide. His guilt, Calypso's constant flirting, and the knowledge that he can't go home no matter what he tries causes Odysseus to nearly give up. This is by far his rock bottom of the musical, and Jorge's vocals in the last part of the song specifically perfectly capture Odysseus' anguish and remorse. And then, as if things can't get any worse, while trying to talk Odie off of the ledge, Calypso unintentionally says a line that reminds him of Polites.
Please stay away from harm. Stay
following fugue includes Polites' part of Open Arms, Eurylochus' part of Luck Runs Out, and Odysseus' mom's part of Underworld, all combined with Odysseus' cries. It is one of my favorite moments musically from the musical, and it is one of the most heart-wrenching scenes in the musical as well. While the song has a bit of a speed bump at the start that keeps it out of the top 10, the highs of this song are incredibly high, and it is without a doubt the best song of the Wisdom Saga.
Let's get dangerous.
After the heartbreak of Thunderbringer, Love in Paradise, and Not Sorry for Loving You, all back to back to back, Odysseus is coming off of his lowest point in the story. He managed to be free from Ogygia, and he's on the path back home, but he is still mentally devastated and unwell. The song opens with a somber twist on Full Speed Ahead, which is such a good tone setter for his mood. By now, I had listened to the entire musical several times from start to, well, not finish, but the last song of the most recent saga at the time, so as such, I had heard Full Speed Ahead over and over and over. So when Odysseus started to sing a version of the chorus from Full Speed Ahead, I was fully prepared to chime in on the cruise part of the song. But there was no crew part. Just a deafening silence to remember just how much Odysseus has lost. All of this is then flipped when Hermes arrives and gives Odysseus the moral boost that he needs. Much like in the last act, when Odysseus has lost nearly everything, Hermes is here to give him a way out via a route home and a new version of the windbag from Keep Your Friends Close. However, the difference with this one is that instead of sending Odysseus to Poseidon, it will instead summon a permanent storm to permanently block off Odysseus' path home. However, despite the do-or-die stakes, the song is positive, upbeat, and motivating. After being helpless and not having a way forward for 7 years, here is Hermes presenting a clear and direct path home. Though it will be hard, Hermes is here actively motivating Odysseus to press onwards. With Wouldn't You Like, it kinda felt like Hermes was tempting Odysseus with the power of Moly, trying to offer him this power with an ulterior motive. The line, "Don't thank me, friend, you very well may die," gave me a slightly off vibe about Hermes, like there would be some catch or consequence to using Moly. But not only after there not being any drawbacks to Moly, but now here with him genuinely instructing Odysseus, it becomes clear to me that Hermes, while eccentric as hell, is a genuinely kind and gracious person. As such, this song is not just a great motivator after the bummer of the last 2 songs with Odysseus, not including God Games because he wasn't in that one, but it is also a great song for Hermes. The only reason it isn't higher is because I just got stronger emotional reactions from the other 9 songs, but that is hardly an insult about Dangerous, because this is still a fantastic song. Combine its story and character-based strengths with its great instrumental and Troy's continuously great vocal performance, and this is an easy top 10 song of the musical for me.
My son,
Yes?
I'm not touching that with a 60-foot pole.
Just as a disclaimer, I will not be going into many specifics of this song due to its contents. I hope you can understand. So, this song. I really don't know what to say other than that this is the best villain song in the entire musical. The atmosphere, the vocals, the instrumental, all of it is the highest quality of any villain song in the musical. The weird part about talking about this song though is that its biggest strength is also what holds it back from being higher on the list. The song is effective. You can feel the palpable rage, entitlement, and malice in this song, specifically with the second and especially the third verses and choruses. With the first 2/3 of this song, it is actually pretty entertaining and fun to sing. It has a classic Disney villain, almost be prepared kind of vibe to it, and I really enjoy it. But then there's the third verse and chorus. Yeah, this is why the song isn't higher. It's fitting, It's accurate to the myth, and again, it is really well sung and well made. Aaron Alexander's vocals are still great, and Penelope's viola in the background having the same motif as Odysseus's "No" from Keep Your Friends Close is a particularly chilling touch. But for very, very obvious reasons, I do not like singing or listening to this part of this song. It is Hellfire from Hunchback of Notre Dame cranked up to 11, and I just do not feel comfortable when it comes on. Again, that speaks to the effectiveness of this song, but it is also a detriment to my enjoyment. Much like how Grave of the Fireflies is one of Studio Ghibli's best movies, but it is also a movie that I cannot watch very often, this is the best villain song of the musical. But it is not one that I can play very often. It's the best, but it is not my favorite.
Stop leaving voicemails!
Ah yes, Ruthlessness, the debut of the first big oh shit villain of the musical. Up until now, the biggest threat that the crew has faced was probably Polyphemus, but even though he was strong and intimidating, beating Polyphemus was definitely within the realm of reality. They could pull it off, mortal beings versus mortal being, and all of that. This is the god of the sea, and they are on boats. These guys are screwed, and they know it, and scariest of all, Poseidon knows it. Up until now, Zeus forced Odysseus to kill an infant, partially just because he said so, but we'll get to that, and Odie and Athena's relationship had a massive power imbalance socially, which led to its implosion. But now Odysseus is faced with a god who knows he has Odysseus beat, has nothing but hatred in his heart for Odysseus, and thinks there is nothing that can save Odysseus. As such, Ruthlessness is this intense, almost Disney-like villain song, except it is leagues better than whatever the hell Bye Bye was. The entire song is filled with this sheer outrage towards what happened to his son, masked under this thin veil of fake politeness. To me, it feels like Poseidon is singing this song with a smile, but the smile isn't reaching his eyes, and it isn't coming through in his voice. And the thing about all of this is that while Poseidon is mad that his son was hurt, it more so feels like Poseidon is mad that Odysseus blinded his son, but rather than kill him, he left him alive, and basically gave Poseidon his address and social security number. To Poseidon, this wasn't an act of mercy, it was an act of hubris. Like there wouldn't be any consequences for hurting a god's son. Coupling the lyrics with the tense, brass-filled instrumental, all climaxing with Poseidon killing over 90% of Odysseus' crew, ending with this haunting reprise of Just a Man, and Poseidon flipping the end of Remember Them onto Odysseus as he manages to use the last of the windbag to escape, and this song just has it all. While it isn't as good as some of the other god-based villain songs in the musical, it is still undoubtedly a phenomenal one, and a fantastic tone setter for Poseidon as a villain. Holy shit, Zeus is such an overdramatic diva, I love this. Yep, this is yet another addition to the Gods Fuck with Odysseus for Fun section of the musical, and this is perhaps the most dramatic one yet. Like, this is the Zeus. The only reason why Odysseus isn't dead already is because of Zeus's pride and ego, which leads him to performing this bombastic song that, to start with, isn't really even about Odysseus or his actions at first. It's solely about Zeus hyping himself up, which is so amazing. Then comes the second verse and the main part of the song. Zeus forcing Odysseus to choose whether he is going to die or if all of his crew except him are going to die. This is such an interesting adaptation of the events of the Odyssey. In the Odyssey, after Odysseus' crew kills Helios' cow, Zeus sends a storm intended to kill all of them, and Odysseus just so happens to survive. But here, in an attempt to play up Zeus's personality and to give Odysseus a bigger character moment in the story, Zeus forces Odysseus to choose between himself and his crew. It's one of the many changes from the Odyssey that I love, since it not only gives Zeus more of a personality, but it lends more weight to Odysseus slowly becoming more and more ruthless. We already know that, according to him, he would trade the world to see his son and wife, and we see him do just that. Speaking of that lyric from Just a Man, the third part after the second chorus is the best part of the song, calling back to the horse and the infant with Odysseus begging,
"Please don't make me do this, don't make me do this."
which then immediately leads into the crew singing the chorus of Just a Man, as Odysseus agonizes over yet another ultimatum that Zeus is giving him. And then Odysseus' decision comes to him in the form of Siren Penelope's words, saying how Penelope can take the suffering from him. While I like the fugue from Love in Paradise and the use of motifs in the background of Would You Fall in Love with Me Again more than this is still probably one of the best combinations of callbacks in the entire musical. And then comes one of the best moments of acting, yes, acting, in the entire musical.
Captain? I have to see her. But we'll die. I know.
Odysseus choosing himself is such a gut punch, because not only were these his men, his soldiers, the men he previously sacrificed his life for, but these were his friends. And somehow, despite over a decade of life with them, his loyalty to Penelope and love for Telemachus still manages to win out. He is simply that dedicated to go home, even if he is also devastated by what he has to do to get there. And to close out the Thunder Saga, after Zeus destroys the rest of Odysseus' crew, there's just this small moment of respite with only a quiet piano playing over the aftermath, as we fully take in just what happened. As cheesy as this may sound, this song completely shocked me when I first heard it. I knew that Odysseus would survive his encounter with Zeus, but the way he did survive was completely heartbreaking and unexpected. On top of the incredible instrumental and the phenomenal vocal performances from everyone involved, especially Luke Holt as Zeus, but the way the story played out was honestly one of my favorite new additions that the musical added in. It shows both Odysseus' resolve and moral degradation, but it also shows just how brutal the gods are. Zeus could have just done what he did in the Odyssey and sent a storm to kill everyone, but this is far more interesting because Odie is only alive because Zeus allowed it. But what would happen if a god didn't allow Odysseus to leave with his life? Well, then we would get a song like,
"Oh God, they try to drown me in this hole. I cannot see. A nigga, goddamn."
If there is one song in this musical that instills dread in the listener, more so than Scylla, more so than No Longer You, more so than Thunderbringer, it is Get in the Water. Up until now, with every song involving a god and Odysseus, aside from Athena and Hermes, there has always been a feeling of the gods toying with Odysseus and playing with him as their proverbial food. But here, Poseidon isn't having fun anymore. After waiting for Odysseus to show up in Ithaca for years, he is finally ready to finish the job and kill Odysseus once and for all. And as far as we know, Odysseus is doomed. The only times he has been able to beat gods is either with the help of some powerful item or by appealing to their emotions. The only reason why Odysseus lived his encounter with Zeus is because Zeus let him live, but there is no way in hell Poseidon is extending that same leeway. From the start, we hear just how pissed Poseidon is, and we not only hear it through Steven Rodriguez's vocals, but also the instrumental, or lack thereof. All we hear are the occasional notes on the trumpet and piano, this eerie and imposing electric sound that I can't quite place, a beating drum that sounds like Odysseus' stressed heartbeat, and the sound of the waves. And that brings us to the main part of the song.
Get in the water. Get in the water.
When I listened to this song for my first time, I was on the edge of my seat, hearing Poseidon slowly get more and more intense, upping his threats again and again before breaking into this belting, shouting, powerful performance, all to essentially get Odysseus to surrender himself before Poseidon ruins all of Odysseus' progress, mere feet from the finish line, and kill everyone he loves is terrifying. Odysseus gives one final plea for mercy, with this quiet moment of Poseidon just stating bluntly that he cannot forgive Odysseus for hurting his son, before finally attacking him and destroying Odie's raft, sinking him deeper and deeper into the sea. Poseidon is so interesting in this because we see a god who is filled with manic hate towards Odysseus for maiming his son. It's so compelling because we know that if it were Odysseus and it were Telemachus who was maimed, Odysseus would be just as monstrous and ruthless as Poseidon is. Hell, we already talked about Odysseus' titular song, so we know that the mere prospect of Telemachus being hurt would spur Odysseus on a killing spree. And then, to close out the song, we have one final gut punch. A reprise of the fugue from Love in Paradise, with all the voices of those Odysseus has lost urging him to surrender and join them in the underworld where they have been waiting. This song, while not quite as intense as Hold Them Down, is an easy second place. And unlike Hold Them Down, I have no qualms with listening to this bitter, petty, and ultimately dark mirror of Odysseus finally getting his long overdue vengeance. While it isn't the best villain song, it is my favorite. Or at least, it would be. But there's just one more villain song from this saga that I find to be even more compelling than this.
He doesn't like you.
I'm sorry.
I don't like you either.
First things first, let's start with this song from a song standpoint. As always, Barbara Wangui's voice is amazing, but in addition, there's a really neat detail in this song that I love. Whenever a mortal sings an epic and there's a choir backing them up, it is always other mortals singing with them in that moment. In Full Speed Ahead, the backing vocals are Odysseus' soldiers. In Hold Them Down, the backing vocals are the other suitors like Antinous, and so on. However, when a god sings with backing vocals in epic, it is always fabricated. Aeolus in Keep Your Friends Close is singing with wind spirits that they summoned. In Ruthlessness, Poseidon is singing with other Lystragonians that he summoned, and so on. However, the backing choir of Not Sorry for Loving You includes only two voices, Calypso's and Odysseus's. This is because, unlike all of the other gods, Calypso has only known two people in her entire life, herself and most recently, Odysseus, which brings us into the main part of this song. Of all of the songs in Epic the Musical, Not Sorry for Loving You is probably the song that I have the most complicated emotions towards, and the song that I have the most to say about. Calypso is a very complicated character to talk about in Epic the Musical. In the myth, she does some truly awful things to Odysseus. That said, in Epic, Calypso doesn't go that far, and just constantly flirts with Odysseus constantly turning her down. That's why in the very next song, God Games, Athena brings up how Odysseus never cheated on his wife as a point in his favor towards Hera. I just want to make it clear that I am neither condoning the actions of either version of Calypso, nor am I trying to paint this version of Calypso as a good guy, because she isn't. She is still a villain in this story, no matter how you slice it. That said, depending on how you slice it, she potentially becomes a lot more compelling than her mythologically accurate counterpart. This song, depending on how you feel about Calypso, is either one of the most sad and tragic songs in the musical, or one of the most rage-inducing, with either take being valid. If you view Calypso to be a sympathetic villain, specifically Epic Calypso, who doesn't go nearly as far as Myth Calypso, then this song reads as Calypso's final desperate attempt to get Odie to stay with her. She was exiled to this island since she was young, and was deprived of all social interactions for thousands of years, only for Odysseus to come along, Calypso, desperate for companionship, then trapped Odysseus and tried to do everything in her power to convince Odysseus to stay with her, and wouldn't take no for an answer. Her continuous and desperate attempts to gain the romantic love of someone who is both unable and unwilling to love her in that way is so sad to watch. When the whole musical is about Odysseus' longing for Penelope, seeing that same longing be unrequited is kinda sad, but Calypso's social ineptitude makes it so that she cannot understand or participate in healthy relationships, and her failure to improve or change without literal divine intervention is what makes her a villain. But to that end, if you view Calypso as an intentionally evil figure, then this song reads as one final manipulation attempt to get Odysseus to stay. In this reading, she is framing herself as the victim, using statements like, "And if you hate me, then I'm sorry that my love was too much for you," which both dramatizes Odysseus' feelings while framing Odie as the one who's being unreasonable, and so on. She isn't saying, "I am sorry that I hurt you." She's saying, "I'm sorry if you were hurt," putting the onus on Odysseus despite it all being her fault. In this reading, the lyrics are dripping with manipulation tactics, and it further cements Calypso as an unsympathetic villain. That said, because you can reasonably read the lyrics either way, and because the musical doesn't take one particular side on the morality of Calypso beyond the obvious fact that she's in the wrong, the listener is able to make their own decision on the matter. As said before, in the myth, Calypso is just as bad as everyone says, with no excuses. But because Calypso's more unforgivable actions are removed as a systematic change of Odysseus turning down goddesses and staying devoted to Penelope no matter what, Calypso's writing becomes a lot more compelling and complex, and that is owed in large part to this song. Add in the complex writing, the beautiful vocals from Barbara Wangui, the backing vocals that only include a chorus of Calypso and Odysseus' voices, the somber and melancholy instrumental, and this song becomes one of the most interesting pieces in the musical for me. Easily my favorite of the Vengeance Saga, and one of my favorites in the entire musical.
Oh, what? Are you saying I'm not a male man? Is that what you're trying to say? I'm not male? I'm not a man? Is that what you're getting at?
When I first listened to the Troy Saga, for the most part I was not impressed. The Horse and the Infant, Open Arms, and Full Speed Ahead didn't really interest me much, and Warrior of the Mind was good, but at the time I felt it was a little overhyped. That said, the reason why I continued to listen to the musical through to the most recent saga at the time, the Cyclops Saga, was because of one song, of one gem, of one beautiful piece of music that convinced me that this musical had the potential for greatness. I am of course referring to Just a Man. After the relatively plot-heavy and intense first song, hearing this quiet, peaceful, and tender song of Odysseus singing to this baby, grappling over whether or not he can actually go through with killing him, is fittingly emotional. Not only are Jorge's vocals at the start just so warm and grief-stricken, but the soft guitar that both signifies Odysseus' main instrument while also contrasting the horse and the infant just adds to the atmosphere of this song. Speaking of, the atmosphere continues to build and build as Odysseus gets closer and closer to justifying this action, this preemptive murder of an infant who has done nothing wrong. The thing that makes this song all the more heartbreaking, and the thing that I've been foreshadowing throughout this list, is that this didn't have to happen. In The Horse and the Infant, while Odysseus is proposing alternatives to Zeus, begging him not to make him commit murder, there's one exchange that I found to be very interesting. Make sure his past is never known, the gods will make him known. By all accounts, if Odysseus raised this baby as his own and hid his past from him, then the child could have been spared. But no. The gods would make the child know exactly where he comes from. This entire conflict with Hector's son is one that the gods are manufacturing, and it's the first time in the musical where Odysseus is being played with by these gods. The song continues to build until we get to by far one of the most iconic parts of the entire musical.
But when does a comet become a meteor? When does a candle become a blaze? When does a man become a monster?
This section of the song, this powerful, heartbreaking, and absolutely gorgeous piece of music is what got me into this musical. The amount of edits that I've seen with this song, crossing over Just a Man with other fandoms and media, is what got me into this musical before I even knew it existed. Hearing this song for the first time woke me the fuck up and introduced me to this wonderful collection of music that by all accounts is still just a concept. It felt like discovering an incredible indie game that not many people knew about, and getting into this musical right before the Storm Saga released meant I was getting in on the ground floor of an absolutely breathtaking musical. When I think of Epic the Musical, this is one of the first songs that I think about for just how amazing it is. And yet, there are still 3 songs from this musical that I find to be even better than this. For a while, this was my absolute favorite song in the musical. To me, it is the perfect Act 1 closer. After finding out that all of his hard work and sacrifices up to this point were all for nothing, Odie is finally at a breaking point where we fully see the guilt and pain that has been building up ever since the start of the musical fully come out. Odysseus breaks down at how it was his fault that he got his men killed and hurt at every single turn, reflecting on the ethics of all of the prior sagas. When Odysseus compares himself to Polyphemus, Circe, and Poseidon, and how Odysseus killed hundreds in Troy, including an infant baby, which he mainly did by ambush from the infamous wooden horse. When he thinks of all of that, is he really any better than any of the foes he has faced so far? This comparison, combined with his growing doubt in peace being a viable approach to getting home, causes his rage to build and build and build and build until, well,
dangerous oceans and beaches, I'll go where Poseidon won't reach us. And if I gotta drop another infant from a wall in an instant so we all don't die, then I'll become the monster. I will deal the blow.
This song, from all non-subjective benchmarks, is probably the best made song in the entire musical. There are no points where the quality dips. There aren't any changes or tweaks that I would make. None of that. It is simply a perfect song, signaling Odysseus snapping and turning into a monster of his own as his resolve to see Penelope and Telemachus reaches a boiling point. It answers the question from Just a Man. When does a man become a monster? Right here. Right now. Odysseus' progression from dejection into this different, bitter beast who will stop at nothing to reach his family is always satisfying to listen to. It is the best song of the Underworld saga, and it is one of the best songs in the entire musical. But it isn't quite my favorite anymore, because there are 2 songs that, while they aren't as well-rounded as Monster, still give me a more visceral and positive reaction than even this. Much like how Monster was the perfect Act 1 closer, Would You Fall in Love with Me Again is, okay, my god, I have to shorten that for my own sanity. Would You Fall is the perfect ending to the entire musical. The long-awaited reunion of Odysseus and Penelope, where both partners are tired, emotionally wrecked, and now confronted by the lover they have longed for 20 years. The use of different strings, like Odysseus' acoustic guitar and Penelope's viola from the immediate start of this song, creates a tense yet soft and tender moment as we wait and see just how Penelope will react to Odysseus coming home. Odysseus breaks down, saying that he is not the same man that Penelope fell in love with, breaking down everything that he has done to get home, accompanied by various motifs from some of the worst moments of his life, all to ask Penelope, would you fall in love with me again? It's a moment where you can feel both Odysseus' determination, but also his remorse for what he has done. And ultimately, Penelope does not fall in love with Odysseus again, because she never stopped loving him in the first place. And even if she did, she would fall in love with Odysseus over and over again because her loyalty, her devotion, and her love are matched only by Odysseus's. The thing that gets me about this song, outside of the beautiful instrumentation and vocals, is the fact that in the end, the prophet's prophecy was wrong. While most of the events did come to pass, that last part didn't. I see a man who gets to make it home alive, but it's no longer you. Despite Odysseus believing that to be true, Penelope asserts that Odysseus is still the same person. He is still her husband. Penelope hasn't been waiting for this new person that Odysseus has become. She's been waiting for Odysseus, the reigning king of Ithaca, and here he stands. And so, Penelope reassures Odysseus that despite everything, it's still you. When Just a Man started playing on those trumpets, signaling not only Odysseus' triumphant return home, but also to portray how Odysseus is still the man that Penelope loves, I fully broke down crying. It is one of the most impactful moments of the musical, and one of the most impactful moments from any musical finale that I have ever heard. This song is everything that I could have hoped for the ending of Epic to accomplish, and it did so with flying colors. While it isn't as well-rounded as Monster, I am confident in saying that Would You Fall is the best song in the entire musical. But it isn't quite my favorite. In my eyes, there is still one song that just ever so slightly has it beat. I'm gonna do something different here and start with the end of the song and then talk about the rest of the song because I have a lot to say about the main part. The ending section with Odysseus and Athena was great. After over a decade, after all that Odysseus has done and how much Telemachus has rubbed off on Athena, the two reunite, but with their ideologies swapped. Now, it is Athena coming to Odysseus with the prospect of a more kind and merciful world. But after all that Odysseus has done, he feels that he cannot participate in it. After everything that has happened, Odysseus still feels guilty for the actions that he committed and believes that if a world exists, it won't be for him, but it will be for the younger generations to shape and inherit. And thankfully, we know that this is the case because of Telemachus. In the song Odysseus, Telemachus led with peace, but then proceeded to fight off the suitors. This boy, who previously struggled to fight off even one suitor, fought off multiple at the same time, while still retaining his optimism and his light. A kinder and more merciful world will exist, because Telemachus is already being shaped into the perfect prince. Speaking of, that brings us to the main part of this song. If there is one song that I think perfectly sums up Odysseus' humanity, it would be this song. Coming off of the heels of murdering over 100 suitors, the moment he is presented with a quiet reunion with his son, the son that he hasn't seen since infancy, Odysseus' monstrous traits completely melt away. Not only is the singing from both Telemachus and Odysseus fantastic, not only is the instrumental easily one of my favorites in the entire musical, but the sheer tenderness from both Telemachus shyly introducing himself and Odysseus softly accepting his son, all culminating in the crescendo where Odysseus proudly proclaims to his son that after 2 decades of pain, hardship, and death, that he is finally home.
My son, I'm finally home! Father, how I long to see you. To lay my cross, I'm home.
this is easily my favorite moment in the entire musical. The hints of love that have been displayed for Telemachus, particularly in Just a Man, are now at the forefront, and it completely warms my heart on every single listen. If I can get a little personal, I wasn't always close with my dad. For most of my life, his job included a lot of travel, a lot of hours, and a lot of work. And aside from fantasy novels and musicals, our interests didn't have much overlap. It is only recently, about in the past 2 years, where my distance away from him and the rest of my family has put into perspective just how much he has done for me and my family, and just how much he loves us, how much he loves me. He doesn't always say it. There have been times where I wish he would have verbalized it more, but at the end of the day, my dad, for as long as I have been alive, has always made it his goal to make my life and my childhood the best it could have been. Every single time I hear this song, I think of my dad, all that he has done for me, how much he loves me, and just how much I love him. If I had to rank this song solely based on its contents with no bias, this song would still be an easy top 5 for me. Now factor in my personal experiences, and this heartfelt reunion is the ultimate payoff to not just all of Odysseus' sacrifices, but all the work of the entire musical. With all that in mind, I Can't Help But Wonder is handedly my favorite song in the Ithaca saga, my favorite song of Epic the Musical, and one of my favorite songs from any musical ever. I am dead serious. Amazing work, Jorge. Amazing work. Overall though, that's my ranking of Epic the Musical. Following this project has been an absolute pleasure, and the contents of the musical are excellent. In general, this is the most that I have passionately loved a modern musical since Hadestown, which is my actual favorite musical of all time. I'm not sure how my love for Epic will evolve over time, and I'm not sure where this musical or Jorge Rivera-Herrans will go from here, but I look forward to seeing it regardless. In the meantime, I'll be here, waiting.